Welcome to the Who's Left podcast, a show about Indiana politics, history, and culture from the unapologetic perspective of the Hoosier left. My name is Scott Aaron Rogers, and I'm recording from Bloomington. This is part 2 of my interview with the Democratic nominee for Indiana's 8th Congressional District, Erik. In part 1, we learned a little bit about his background before spending the rest of the episode talking about the economy, including healthcare and education. If you haven't listened to that one yet, I highly recommend doing so before continuing here. Again, Indiana's 8th Congressional District is located in southwest and west-central Indiana and includes Clay, Crawford, Davies, Du Bois, Gibson, Greene, Knox, Martin, Orange, Owen, Park, Perry, Pike, Posey, Spencer, Sullivan, Vanderburgh, Vermilion, Vigo, and Warwick counties, as well as half of Fountain County. The sprawling district is the largest in the state by land area and includes the cities of Evansville, Terre Haute, Vincennes, Jasper, and Washington. Today, in the back half of our discussion, we pick up with post-secondary education before considering what democracy could be, the overhyped issue of illegal immigration, the underhyped issue of women's reproductive rights, his Trump sycophant opponent, and get out the vote strategy. Real quick, before we return to the interview, do please consider supporting Who's Left financially. I currently work as an independent craftsman during the day and work on this project on evenings and weekends. There are so many more things I want to do here at Who's Left if I could do this work full time. But I need your help to get there. If you can, help me out with a paid subscription at scottaaronrogers.substack.com. For $5 a month or $50 a year, you can help me push our state in a better direction. And maybe if we reach critical mass, I could put down my tool belt and devote my full time to you, to this project, and to Indiana's future. So, if you have the means, pause right now, go to scottaaronrogers.substack.com and subscribe at the paid level. And while the best way to help this project is a financial contribution, if you can't afford it at this time, you can still help. Subscribe at the free level over on Substack. Set your favorite podcast player to auto-download new episodes of the show. Rate and review the show on whatever platform you use. Help the algorithm, help people find us. Follow me on social media at facebook.com/who's left. That's HOOS left. I'm also on Blue Sky at the same handle. On Instagram, Threads, and Twitter, I'm at ScottRog78. That's SCOTTROG78. And on Mastodon at ScottRog78 at Hoosier.social. Full video episodes of the pod are available on YouTube and clips on TikTok. The handle on both of those is at Who's Left. Please subscribe on whichever platforms you use and send me a DM to discuss ideas for the project. But most importantly, share our message. Forward the articles to friends, family, and colleagues. Don't just like, but share on social media. Invite others to this community of Indiana leftists. Nobody is coming to save us. We've got to do it ourselves. To those who have joined this community already, especially those paid subscribers, thank you so much. I am honored by your support. And to everybody, thanks for listening. Now, here's part 2 of my interview with Indiana's 8th Congressional District Democratic candidate, Erik.
Is because you want them to be exploitable and to be expendable. That's the only reason why you wouldn't want to fund those things. Yeah. And that's the truth for that top 1% who, wants to keep people in their place. That's what they're doing. That's why they want to pull money from education. That's why they want to pull money from these things, is because they want to keep them able to be exploited. And because otherwise, and that's everything. It's not just, 4-year, universities. It's, things like AC repair, carpentry, all those things. And if you talk to people in those industries, people are aging out of it quickly.
Yeah, yeah.
And anytime if you have to get work on your house done or anything like that, it can be tough to find people. It's not just good for the people who are going to learn the skills to be able to provide for themselves. It's good for everybody. Having plumbers and AC repairmen and carpenters and people filling those positions and having those skilled people available to do that benefits everybody. You're never going to regret having that. And it's extends to so many things. Something that really worries me is all the stuff going on with like Boeing.
Oh my God, yeah.
And it's so scary. And you're not going to regret having people who are very skilled and good at being able to build planes. You're not going to regret that. You're not going to regret making sure that people can pursue that education if they want to and be able to afford it and learn and grow and not have to worry about how much money they're spending and not have to worry about how much debt they're going to go into. That's something that, if we want good things, we need people who are educated. And you're not gonna have, you can't expect to have, great modern infrastructure if people don't have the education to build that. And whether that's, in the engineering or the design or in the trade, areas of that, in whatever way, people are learning how to build these things, or provide these things, or, I've talked a lot about it in terms of, like building and stuff like that, but it goes beyond that too, when we're talking about sort of the ideas of, how do we value things and that philosophy, that goes into the importance of, the humanities as well, making sure people are educated in, literacy and critical thinking and those kind of things. That's just as important, because if you want a society that's, working, well together and, has, those good fundamental values, people need to have a good, liberal education. And that was at the heart of education for years, was studying the classics and, those kind of things. And that's how we, if you look at George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, what were they studying? They were studying the humanities. Mm-hmm. And so, we also have to make sure we continue to value that. It's not just STEM. It's not just, things in that area.
Profitable. Yes.
Yeah, the things that you can make a profit on. People like to throw, different, degrees, under the bus, and say, oh, you're in student debt. Well, why'd you go to school for, gender studies or this, that, and the other? It's because it matters.
Yeah, to increase the stock of human knowledge. What are you doing with your money?
Is that? Oh gosh, I can't believe you pursued knowledge for knowledge's sake. Gosh, you want a better understanding of the human condition. God, what were you thinking? No, art, the humanities, that adds value to people's lives. And that goes back to, again, what I was saying before. Sometimes it's just nice to have those things. It's nice to have people who are good at writing, who are good at making art. It's nice to have good art and those kind of things. It enriches people's lives. It makes our lives better. Why would we not want to have that?
The tech guys say AI can do all that now, right?
God. It's every time I see a video of like, oh gosh, like we've just changed the game. The movie studios are shaking in their boots. It's the most ugly, just artless thing I've ever seen in my life.
No soul.
Yeah. God, no soul at all. And so, yeah, I think it comes back to those values of just like utilitarianism and just what's good for a lot of people. And sometimes that's just things that enrich our day-to-day lives. And I think a lot gets lost because what do we spend most of our time doing? It's just living. It's just existing. Let's create a space that feels good to exist in. And so, it's nice to not have to worry about what you have to pay for healthcare. That's a nice thing that you don't have to worry about anymore. It's nice to think, oh, if I want to pursue a different degree, I can do that. I can learn a skill. I can learn a trade if I want to. I can take classes on English literature if I want to, and I'm not going to have to waste a fortune, and I'm going to be better for it. I'm going to be more educated for it. You know, I think about education and things. There's a lot of classes I would love to take just to learn a little bit more about something, whether maybe it's photography, maybe it's, take a class on astronomy or physics, just because I think that's nice. I would love to be able to do that just to enrich myself, enrich, my life and my understanding of the world around me. And I know that's true for a lot of people, but we can't really do that because it's hard to justify the cost. It's if I can't make a career out of this, well, then I can't justify spending that money. But it's a good thing to have for people if we have institutions available where people can learn things and grow and better themselves. That's a good thing. And same with, creating, funding parks and creating walkable communities and developing those things, like when, people go on vacation to places to have a walkable community. Like if you look at a lot, like people go to Disney World because everything you go to is walkable. And there's
walkable or there's the tram. Yeah.
Yeah. Like people get hyped about the monorail. Like that's a huge thing. And like, that's a vacation selling point, and if you go, you go to, like tourist trap places, whether, it's Myrtle Beach or Pigeon Forge or, St. Augustine down in Florida, those places, like people flock there because it's easy to get around and it feels like a vacation, and you can have that in your day-to-day life. You just have to think about, okay, is this, and again, it's a different conversation about why we set up suburbanization and white flight and the highways. And that's a whole other thing about how we got to where we got. But going forward and looking forward, it's just nice. It's nice to be able to just get up and be able to walk to the corner store and get something. And we can do those things. We can build those things. We can make the future we want to live in if we decide that's what we want to do. And we have to stop constantly thinking about what a billionaire's bottom line looks like and start thinking about, well, is it something that I want? Is it something that's good for the community? Yes. Let's pursue it. Yeah. Is clean water good for me? Will it cost a factory, a couple $1,000 to not pour sewage in the river? Okay. Then good. Like, I have a clean river. We all have a clean river now. Like, it's that prioritization.
What about the CEO's yacht, Eric? Where does that fit in? That's important.
I mean, if we want to prioritize that, I guess that's
about
that.
The yacht owners.
We got to think about the yacht owners. We really do.
Well, let me.
But yeah, I mean, it's just it's the prioritization of those things, and again, I think it really comes from that sort of that corporate idealization of the 80s that we still haven't really shook, and there's conversations to be had about making sure we are keeping jobs here in the United States, that we're keeping that money and those jobs, but we also don't want to be blackmailed. We don't want to be, we don't want to exist with a boot on our neck and say, oh, well, we can't have a clean environment because otherwise, the factory's going to leave. Like that's exploitation. That's blackmail.
Yeah.
So if we are under, that kind of corporate blackmail, is, are we going to, sit down and accept that? Like, I don't think we should. I think we need to be able to stand up for ourselves and say, like, we deserve better than that. We're not going to just sit here and let, people, ruin, stuff for the rest of us because you think, oh, well, I can just go to, Jackson Hole, or, I can, go to, these, billionaire communities where I don't have to worry about it. I can pour a bunch of, toxic stuff in a, poor community and, not have to worry about it. it's that same idea where the rich, are always going to be able to go, off to where they want to go. We have to be able to,
They're rich enough
stick
to,
up for our communities and for our areas. And I think that is vital. That is vital to kind of build that mindset. And that's and again, kind of coming back to why I'm running for Congress is to hopefully build on changing that mindset, to get people, to think differently about what the government can do for them and making the government work for them. Because what our government is, what a democracy is people coming together, working together for a common benefit against exploitation from the rich. When you look at what government systems looked like before democracy, in Europe or this, that, or the other, if you have kings and lords and royals and this, that, and the other, those are the people who control the land, control the resources, and essentially it's similar to billionaires today. It's those people who control land and control resources, and the people's government is our tool to protect ourselves and protect our interests against those people trying to oppress us. That's why we revolted, is to say we're going to have that in our own hands. It's not going to be, you deciding this. We're going to decide it. We're going to take control. We're going to build these systems for ourselves. And kind of getting people to think about how they can use the government and use it as a tool for their own benefit, I think is really important. Because if we strip a bunch of regulations and we stop taxing the rich and we let them, do what they want to do and just let the free market, sort itself out, then the government becomes a cudgel in our own oppression.
Yep.
It will be used against us. If we give it over to the rich, they will use it against us. We can take it, we can use it for ourselves to better our station, to better our condition, to make life better for us. And that's what we need to get back to. And that's what I want to help people understand and show them, particularly young people, to say, get involved, be active, connect with people and build the future you want to see, create the world you want to see, use the government as a tool to build the world that you want to live in. That's what we can do. That's what I want this campaign to show people, is that we can use this infrastructure, these systems, to create a world that works for us and to create a system that works for us.
Yeah.
And not just a system that works for the top 1%.
The right, the oligarchs, the rich have done a very good job convincing people that government is this other. It's this thing that exists separate from us. But I like to do this little, thought exercise with people. Whenever they disparage government, substitute government for all of us working, substitute the words all of us working together wherever they use government, and it changes
That's really
the way
smart.
you think about things.
That's really smart. That is really smart. And I mean, because that's what it is. Government is not an entity of itself. It is individuals. Government is what we make out of it, and our system of government is who we put into it and what we put into it. And so, if you put a bunch of people who are trying to make things better for Elon Musk, well, then that's what government's going to be. Mm-hmm. If you put, people who are, in for your interest and for bettering your values, then government's going to be that. And so, I hear people say, you can't trust the government. Well, what, in this,
you can't trust all of us working together?
Yeah. I mean, what are you talking about? And so, and again, it kind of comes to that, accountability, where it's okay, well, you're not trusting the government, but so I guess you trust, that Jeff Bezos that he'll have your best interests at heart. What exactly makes him more trustworthy? There's just that disconnect that you have to try and get people to see. the government is yours. You own it. Like, you own the government. We all own the government. Like,
it should be.
It is what you make of it. So yeah, I mean, if you make if you put a bunch of fascists in government, then you're going to have a fascist government. Like, I mean, it is what you make of it at the end of the day.
Let's change gears a little bit here. I want to talk about the number 2 issue that people are talking about in this election, which I don't think this is the most important thing in this election, but yet it keeps coming up as the number 2 issue in all the polls, and that's immigration. Is this such a concern precisely because the right wing says it's a concern, or are illegal immigrants pouring into southwestern Indiana and making life difficult for the people there?
Yeah, so I was talking to Ray McCormick this morning, who ran this race in 2022, and he's up in Vincennes. He's a farmer, and he was talking about the value of people on work visas, immigrants who have come into Southwest Indiana, and the value they've put into the agricultural industry here, the amount of money they have brought into Southwest Indiana, just the benefit to having people in this area in Southwest Indiana from south of the border, and just what a benefit he has seen with him and his colleagues and his peers, and how important immigration is to making sure that those systems are working better. Illegal immigration in this country is blown very far out of proportion to the threat that it poses. Mm-hmm. It is a fear tactic that is used to keep people scared and distracted. And it has been that for a long time. And I remember being younger, and the tactic was, they're coming in to take your job.
Yep.
And that was the line. And there's the South Park episode about it.
They took our job. Yeah, that's a good one.
And that was the line. And that's what was used to make people scared. And then that stopped working because they weren't taking anybody's jobs. And so the line became, well, they're bringing, violence, and they're bringing drugs.
They're bringing drugs, and they're not bringing the best. Yeah.
And then that sort of stopped working. And so it's escalated again. It's an invasion. The cartels are going to come, and they're going to invade the U.S., and you need to get down to the border, and we need a militia. And when the militia went down there, what did they find?
Where's the invasion?
No invasion. It's a fear tactic. And I'm not saying that there's no issues at the border. There are drugs that get seized. There are things that happen. But the demonization of immigrants, the scapegoating of immigrants, is a fear tactic used to keep conservatives in power. Mm-hmm. And so we're not seeing that threat in Southwest Indiana. It's and it's a problem because we can talk about all the statistics about illegal immigrants in this country aren't more dangerous than U.S. citizens. They're not committing more crimes. They're not more violent. If we just get these people IDs and help them get jobs and that stuff, it's actually bringing money into our communities. It's providing jobs to our communities in places like rural areas, especially when we're seeing birth rates go down. It's an opportunity to bring people back to those communities, to bring money into those communities, to help those communities thrive. That's the reality, and you can show people those statistics. But the fear keeps all those statistics, out of people's minds.
And that's what? Just good old-fashioned racism, right?
And there's always good old-fashioned racism.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot of obviously red tape, and we need to work on creating clearer paths to immigration. I mean, when my family came over in the 40s, I mean, we were coming off of a huge period of massive immigration.
Yeah.
And there were incredible obstacles people had to face in terms of racism. Whether they were coming from Italy or Ireland or Eastern Europe, like my family. There were those issues, but immigrants built this country. It is what it is because of immigrants. And so it was used back then in the 20s to try and keep people from being organized. Racism was, it's like, oh, well, you can't, you have to, demonize, Italians or Irish people. And hopefully that will.
Full of them, right? Yep.
Yep.
Yeah,
and it's the same thing going on. If you think that, this, person coming from Mexico just trying to find a life for themselves is the enemy, then the people who are actually picking your pocket, well, they're the ones on my side.
There it is.
And that's what's happening. And it's a difficult thing to overcome. The preconceived notions that people have. But that also kind of comes into sort of fostering that sense of community. When you're with people, when you meet people in different communities, when you see that they're just people, and that can be whether they're immigrants, whether they're, just people of a different ethnicity, whether it's members of the LGBTQ community. If you're interacting with those people, if you have that sense of community, you're going to be more empathetic. You're going to be more, open. And so I think that's another part of trying to create denser communities and more connectivity. If you do that, you're fostering a better sense of community and you're fostering those connections. If you can keep people more isolated, if you can keep them in a house and then a car and then a cubicle and then a car and then a house, you can more easily otherize people.
Yeah.
But if you are riding the bus or walking the streets or, just out in the community more and you're seeing more people, you're going to see, oh, hey, it's not dangerous. It's not scary.
Doing their own thing just like me.
Yeah, it's just you're just a normal person, and that was a thing for me too. Kind of going back into my history, like I've done theater my whole life, and so I've known people in the LGBTQ community my whole life.
Are there a lot of gay people in theater?
So I've known people in that community, and so my whole life, it's just, oh yeah, these are normal people living their lives. They love this thing that I love. They love art and performance, and this is great. And again, it comes to that idea of just like, oh hey, these are just normal people. And if you can create those connections and see, and whether it's a trans person or somebody who's a drag queen, it could be somebody you're hanging out with, just on your normal day-to-day basis, and they're just a person having fun.
Yeah.
And it's getting people to see that these are just people, and it's a great tactic to use if you can otherize somebody and demonize them, to kind of get people distracted. And that's the whole culture war thing, and that's what Republicans have. They don't have anything else. None of their policies don't work. They don't have a way to get people health care. They don't have a way to bring down the cost of college. They don't have a way to bring down the cost of housing, because their policies are the things that got us in this position in the first place. So what they have, what they run on, what Mark Messmer's running on, what Trump is running on is, how can we keep people scared?
Yeah.
How can we keep people convinced that they need a gun, that they need a big, strong man to come in and stop all these scary people? How do we keep people isolated and scared that's what they have to run on, and it's effective. It is. And it's how do we get people to see people in a different way? And a lot of that is connecting people,
Yeah.
bringing people together, letting them experience something different than what they're used to. And a big problem people face, and you get a lot, and a lot of it comes when people talk about, oh, when you go off to college and become a big liberal. Most college campuses are walkable communities where you're around different people from different backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
It has nothing to do with what's in the books or what's in the curriculum. It's that you're interacting with different people.
By your socialist professors, right? No, it's not that.
It's none of that. It's, oh, hey, yeah, these people are just folks. Oh, walkable community. It's nice. I had a friend in high school who was like the leader of the Young Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
And we were buds because he was really bright, but he was raised. His parents were Republicans. He was raised in that, and that's just how he was. He went to school in Europe, and
yeah,
completely different ideology. And he lives in Europe now. He lives in Norway, and he was exposed to something different, and he saw a different way. And a tough thing in the United States is that we are so big that you can go so many thousands of miles in a different direction and you're still in the United States. It's tough for people to see a different way of doing things, because people are so isolated. So many Americans never get the chance to leave the United States. A lot of Americans have a tough time just getting out of their state.
Mm-hmm.
So exposing people to not even new ideas, but just new individuals. Just not the same 5 people that they see. Can go a long way into changing the way they think about things.
Yeah,
and to the changing the way they think about community and government, because again, it's that idea of like, oh, I don't want to pay taxes because I don't want to pay for somebody else to get an education.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I paying for somebody else to have a benefit? Why am I paying for somebody else's health care? But if you bring people together a little bit, well, it's like, oh, well, that's okay.
Yeah, I know that guy. I'll pay for his health care. He's one of the good ones.
Yeah, we can help each other. We can help people out. And so fostering that sense of community, I think, is really important. And there's a lot of people doing a lot of great work here trying to do that. People like Courtney Johnson, who serves on the Evansville City Council, and people like Mary Allen here, and I think our new mayor, Stephanie Terry. I think she's doing great work in fostering a sense of community in Evansville.
Yeah.
And she's been in office for just a few months, and we're already feeling that, and being able to capitalize on that and build on that momentum is going to be really important. So I think if we see a path to victory for people in congressional races outside of 1 and 7, it's about bringing people together.
Yeah.
It's about getting people connected, building on that momentum, fostering a sense of community among like-minded people who are have that buy-in to their community, who want to stay in their community and help bring it towards something new, something brighter, something better. And it's a tough ask, I think. I'm a straight white guy. I can go anywhere in the country and I don't have to worry about, my fundamental rights being taken away. But for, people in the LGBTQ community, for people of color, for women, it can be tough to ask, hey, stay in this place where you may not be able to get an abortion, where you may not be able to get married, where you have to worry about, systemic racist issues. If, you talk to a lot of young people and, it's like, oh, as soon as I can get out of here, I'm going, you want to, you want to be around people who, have the same values as you and, are committed to the same things as you, on top of just, it's great to have, good parks and good libraries and things like that. But if we can bring people together and say, hey, we are all connected and united in this fight to make things a little better, and you give them the resources and you give them the platform to jump off of, that can go a long way into changing the trajectory of Indiana. And I think that has to be the focus. And I mentioned it before, but if we're only focusing on getting individuals elected, which is still important,
yes,
and there's a lot of great work that people are doing in doing that, and your district county chairs and the state party, and that's really important. But you need people on the ground, doing grassroots stuff, creating that, sense of networking and sense of environment. And I mentioned when I was in high school, we had a Young Democrats. A lot of the high schools did, there were active, Young Democrats at USI and UE, and a lot of that's not there anymore.
Really?
And if we're not fostering that, we're missing a real opportunity to, bring a lot of positive change. And so, we really need to capitalize on that if we're going to see, Indiana moving towards the left.
Yeah.
I think if we're not taking advantage of that, that's how you get Micah Beckwiths.
Yeah.
If that's how you get Mike Braun coming back here. That's it's scary and it's frustrating, but we have to figure out how we're using our resources and kind of coming back to money and finances. I think a reality that a lot of people in my position are facing is that how do we raise more money than the Republicans? Because the conventional wisdom,
you can't.
Yeah, I mean, not here. I mean, if that's the game you're playing, you're not going to catch up to them. And if there are people who can get out there and get 5, 6, 700,000, then the Republicans can just dig a little deeper in their pockets, and
they have essentially unlimited resources.
You're constantly trying to catch up, and catch up and catch up. And so we have to think of things differently. It can't just be, if only I can raise a little more money, if only I can pull in a few more dollars, then maybe I can move things forward. That can't be the strategy. There has to be a different tactic. And I'm not saying money's not important. And I still need money for my campaign. Yeah. Everybody does. You need money and resources for the kind of organizing I'm talking about too. But if that's the focus, then we're just spinning our wheels. We have to look at things from different angles. We have to get to the heart of what's working, what's not, and see how we can do things. And look at people like Stacey Abrams and what she did in Georgia, getting people connected, and then getting Ossoff and Warnock elected. It's that kind of super grassroots kind of stuff. And, I know there are a lot of people, still working, on that in Texas and, just trying to, kind of get over the hump. And, that's what we need to do in Indiana is to take that, approach and try and work on getting people to think about it differently. And then if we can build, if we can grow, if we can continue on that trajectory, we can start seeing some changes. But with the way things are gerrymandered, the way things are rigged, as long as Republicans have a supermajority, if we're just playing by conventional wisdom and playing by the old rules and treating it like it's 2008, we're not setting ourselves up for success. And so it's kind of getting. And anything, any issue, you have to get to the root of it. You have to get to the root of the issue and start from there. And so, hopefully we can do that. And I think the root of it, the start of it, building communities.
we were talking about immigration, and it sounds like we kind of decided that legal immigration, especially in southwestern Indiana, not really a big deal. What is a big deal is that more than half of the population in your district and our state and much of the country, I'm talking about women, don't have autonomy over their own bodies. Now, I'm going to bet that is something you're hearing about out there.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and I mean, it's a frontline issue for a lot of people, and it's something that's been frustrating. And it was an issue when Roe v. Wade got overturned. Was that it's felt like this carrot that's been dangling for so long, and used as like a fundraising thing.
Yeah, it was
just like Roe v. Wade could guys, it could be under threat if we're not in there. We missed so many opportunities to get it ratified and to make sure it was put into law so that it couldn't just be overturned by the Supreme Court.
At one point, I think we believed that the Supreme Court abided by precedent, but it turns out they don't do that anymore because the court is corrupt and backed and stolen.
We're living in a different time, and I really think, and I mean, kind of talking about some of that conventional wisdom, like things that worked before Trump. I mean, we can't play by those same rules. It's a different America. It's a different world. But yeah, so I mean, it's an incredibly important issue for me. Obviously, the right to an abortion needs to be protected, and we need to act on that, on a very, fundamental way, because again, and I mentioned it before, it's a way to keep people marginalized. It's a way to keep people oppressed. It's you try and spin it to say it's about, protecting children and this, that, and the other. It's like, well, why aren't you making sure those kids are fed once they're out of the womb? Yeah. Why aren't you making sure they're educated? Why aren't you making sure they're not getting shot? And so the moral argument is nonsense, because that's not what it's about. It's a tactic. So, so I mean, it's, and I think it's something that, obviously a lot of women understand that, what is actually happening, and why they are, using abortion as this issue. And, it's one of those things where, a fetus is, an easy, thing to, champion, because, they're, when they're born, suddenly there's, more responsibility there. And there's, all these things. But, as long as they're just a fetus, that's, nothing. They can just use them as a tool, to manipulate people. And it's despicable, because people's lives are at stake, and women will die because of that decision. And other people who, give birth will have their lives put at risk because of that decision. And it's, wanting to put control over people's lives. And in Indiana, we have already one of the highest maternal mortality rates in the country. And that decision is only going to make that worse. And so we need to do whatever we can to reverse that decision and give people their bodily autonomy back.
Damn right. I want to jump down a little bit and talk about your opponent, Mr. Messmer, who certainly does not favor a woman's right over her own body. But aside from that, what else is Messmer about?
I mean, everything you see on Mark Messmer, he has tied his whole campaign, his whole political reputation on being pro-Trump. I believe his tagline originally was pro-gun, pro-life, pro-Trump. That is his thing. He's a MAGA guy through and through. I mean, his tagline, essentially is, pro-child murder, anti-choice, and pro-fascism. That is at the heart of his campaign, and it's weird to see what his priorities are, because when you look at his website, it's, I think the top line thing is cryptocurrency.
I saw that he had a big thing about cryptocurrency, and I know he's got a big blurb about Israel because he got a lot of money from AIPAC.
Because
Hostetler's a bit of an anti-Semite.
Hostetler, so they sort of turned it on that. But yeah, no, I don't understand his priorities. His priorities that he has listed are not what Hoosiers are affected by. It's not the problems that Hoosiers have. None of his priorities are helping people afford homes or better their education or get better health care. That's nowhere in his platform is a good, sensible path to helping people out. It's not reducing prison populations. It's not reducing drug usage. There's nothing that he has in his platform that shows any of that as a priority. He's tied into being a Trump guy. And what is Trump about? It's about getting money and getting power.
Yeah, Trump's about Trump. Yeah.
Trump's about Trump. Mesmer's about Mesmer. And that's all there is to it. I mean, that's what he is. And for the people who have, thrown their dignity out the door to lick Trump's boots, that's what you get. It's people who are out for their own self-interest. He's not interested in helping the people of Indiana. You can see that in his website. I mean, unless, we have a bunch of people who dumped millions into cryptocurrency. And if we did, I mean, I'm not saying it's not an issue. I'm not saying
it just proves that we really need to double down on that education and critical thinking.
I mean, really, if that's what it is, I don't think so. But it's just it's a lack of priorities. But that's what you see. I mean, it's not somebody who is on the ground trying to improve the day-to-day lives of Hoosiers. It's somebody trying to manipulate people into putting him in a position of power. And I believe that's why he got into politics, is that, if he can manipulate himself into these positions, that's what he's going to do.
Clarence Thomas tells me the perks are sweet.
I don't have a lot of kind words. So I mean, that's kind of where I stand.
Well, all right. So how are you going to beat this guy? You're in probably is the 8th the biggest district in the state? It certainly looks like it
by size.
Yeah.
So it is.
Got a big spread out district. You're certainly not going to be able to knock on every door across this wide, huge rural area. So, are you focusing on urban turnout, Evansville, Terre Haute, other locales to lesser extents, but those are your bigger population centers. What's the strategy?
Yeah, so I mean, like you said, a lot of my focus is on those bigger areas. So Evansville, Jasper, Terre Haute, and like I mentioned earlier, hitting the universities is I think a very important part of this, trying to drive that voter turnout. Because I think if we're looking at just trying to pull swing voters, I think there's only so much you can do in terms of that. And I mean, billions of dollars are spent every year trying to get like 5% of votes swung in a couple states. And so Especially in Indiana where we have oh um, what's the term for straight ticket, where
Yeah.
you have straight ticket voting. It can be really hard to kind of pull those people, and how do you convince
Oh, yeah.
people not to vote straight ticket? And so that's still something I really want to try and do, and something I want to really emphasize. But part of my strategy in trying something new, trying something different, because if we're not trying something new, we're going to run into the same pitfalls we've been running into. And so a big push for me has been hitting those universities, talking to students, and I've got a lot of students who have reached out to me and have gotten on board and are working with a team and connecting in that way. And if we can drive that voter turnout in that demographic, I think that can really go a long way, and it can really affect things, especially when I'm not running against an incumbent. And so I have a little bit of a benefit there. But I think if I can get that group of people networked and mobilized, I think that can go a long way. And it covers a lot of area. It covers Terre Haute, and it covers Evansville, and it covers Vincennes. And so there are those colleges, the people who are maybe living on this side of the district at IU, or maybe registered in the district at IU. If we can get a team of those people together working in those different parts of the district, then we can really have some momentum and things that we can really do in a big way. Outside of just the district parties, if we can work with the people in the schools as well, I think that can be a really big benefit, and something that I can provide a path to victory in this district. And it's still a very big uphill battle.
Yeah.
But I think that's a way we can really make some headway. On the other side of it is something that I think is really important, and something I really want to try and connect people with in the senior community, is the threat under Social Security and Medicaid, and the way that those things are under threat. And not just for people in the senior community, but people who are in their 50s and 60s and are looking forward to retirement, and who may have to see their entire retirement plans change or go out the window because these things are under threat. And so I think if we can convince people that these things are truly under threat, and it's tough, and you talk to people and it's like, oh, well, do you really think that's going to happen? Do you really think they're going to get rid of Social Security? Yes. They will.
They've been talking about it since we introduced Social Security. They've been trying.
It's the same thing when Trump was running, and he was talking about oh, well, maybe we'll go for a third term or a fourth, and it's these things like, oh, well, he's just saying that.
Right. They wouldn't really overturn Roe versus Wade. That's precedent. He wouldn't really try an insurrection. No. Yeah, no. But the man lies all the time, but on those big things, when they tell you what they're going to do, believe them.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you run into these things where it's just like, oh, well, no, that's not going to happen. I'm sure I'll be fine. Kind of getting people to understand what's at risk. And it's, you may not be able to retire if Trump gets elected. If that happens, I mean, there is so much at stake, and trying to get people to see that and understand that is another big part of what I want to try and do. And I think if I can bring those two things together, if I can get students motivated, if I can get them organized and mobilized, and if I can get people to see the threat that Social Security and Medicaid are under, I think that is the clearest path to victory that we have.
You've got a couple young, dynamic new mayors that you mentioned in your district.
Yes.
And Stephanie Terry down there in Evansville, and Brandon Sackbutt up in Terre Haute. Have you been in contact with them? Are you able to maybe lean on them for some help in the cities?
Yeah. So I've been in contact with both. I've got a meeting scheduled with Stephanie Terry next week, and I've talked to some members of her team and have met her a few times. And yeah, I mean that is, I think, really important for me to do that. I'm going up to Terre Haute on Wednesday, and so. We'll hopefully have some time to meet with him, and I've talked to them about the importance of getting younger people organized. And I mean, I think that is part of their success is being young and dynamic. And if we can build on that to get it out into the counties, that's what we need to do. And I think what they've done and the success that they've had has been huge. And so yeah, I just want to build off of their momentum and keep that growing outside of the cities.
Fantastic. Erik, why don't you take us home here and give us your closing remarks?
Yeah, so I want to build a better future for Indiana and for Hoosiers. I want a America that works for everyone, where everybody is able to live a life of comfort and dignity and respect, no matter where they come from, no matter who they are, no matter what their sexual orientation is, or their ethnicity, or their job. And that is what I am fighting to bring to Indiana. That is what I want to do. And any help you are able to provide, any thing you can do to help spread the message, spread the word. If you're able to contribute to the campaign, you can find us on Act Blue. You can find the website, erichurtforcongress.com. If you're able to chip in and help, if you want to, just provide some information or just get some, information about the campaign. If you're able to volunteer, anything that we can do to help build a community of like-minded people in Southwest Indiana to build a better community, to build a better Indiana, to build a better future. That's what we're here to do, and I would love your help in doing that. So thank you, and thank you, Scott, for having me. It was great talking to you and shooting the breeze, and this was great.
Yeah, loved having you. Erik Hurt, thank you so much. Really appreciate you joining the Who's Left
Go watch
podcast.
Casablanca if you haven't seen it. Casablanca. That's my call to action. Everybody go watch
I cannot
Casablanca.
believe that there is gambling taking place in this establishment.
Oh gosh.
All right, Erik, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Once again, that was Erik Hurt, Democratic candidate to represent Southwest Indiana's 8th District in the next Congress. Some closing thoughts. Like I said back in May, right after the primary, I am excited for Erik's campaign. For the last 15, 20 years, Indiana Democrats have consistently run centrist candidates in the big races. I've spoken to multiple nominees already this cycle, and I'm starting to see some boldness peeking out from under the moderate covers. But still, Hurt has put forward the most unapologetically social democratic, progressive platform of Hoosier congressional challengers. Now, realistically, I know all 7 of the Democratic non-incumbents in these races are competing on uneven, gerrymandered playing fields and are more than likely to lose, but that won't stop me from hyping every single one of them, and it should motivate all of us to work even harder to help their campaigns. I will be interested, however, come November 5th, to see how each performs against expectations, relative to each other, and in comparison to the top of the ticket. I'm going to go out on a limb and say Erik Hurt, win or lose, will outperform mainstream Democrats in similar districts. And when he does, I want party leadership to finally internalize the lesson that voters want change. Positive, people-focused change. Maybe it's because I've spent a lot of time working under houses, but I keep coming back to the same metaphor. The system, the foundation is rotten. We've got a corruption infestation. And Republicans are chomping at the bit to dynamite the joint and build what they call the kingdom of God in its place. They've become the radicals. We've become conservatives. Too often, all we've offered is save this house and a roll of duct tape, while putting forward no blueprint to fix the underlying structural issues. Where are the progressives? Where is the plan for a thorough renovation? How do we save this house and ensure it lasts another 250 years? Erik has a blueprint. Thank you for listening. And thanks again to my guest, Erik Hurt. Find him at erikhurtforcongress.com. That's Erik with a K. Please help his candidacy however you can, with a contribution, by volunteering, by just talking to everyone you know in Evansville, Jasper, Terre Haute, Vincennes, Washington, and throughout Southwest Indiana about the stakes of this election. If you can afford to help one of us financially, let it be him. But if you can help us both, I kindly ask you to consider a paid subscription at scotterikrogers.substack.com. That's where you'll find everything I publish, and you can find me on Facebook, Blue Sky, YouTube, and TikTok at Who's Left, and on most other social media sites at ScottRodge78. If you want, send me a message. My DMs are open on social media, and my email is scottrodge78@gmail.com. Forward the show to a friend, and have them forward it to another friend. 10 years of bad luck if you don't. So let's keep this project growing. Until next time, this has been the Who's Left podcast. I'm Scott Eric Rogers. Love each other, Indiana.